Interesting numbers here. Nearly 21,000 people have become eligible for funding from the 9/11 Victims Compensation Fund. More than $4.3 billion have been distributed to victims and their families, a number that continues to grow each year. Well, there are several local stories here on the Suncoast of those who were at the Twin Towers that morning. Our Marla Spence spoke with a survivor who was in the World Trade Tower and also a first responder who jumped into action. There's a very important reason why she is right now outside the Sarasota Police Headquarters. Marla?
Hey Ray, this is a beam from the South Tower of the World Trade Center. It sits in honor of the almost 3,000 people who lost their lives during the tragic terrorist attack 17 years ago today. That beam that sits here is also from the same tower one Sarasota man was in the day of the attack. David Kotok of Cumberland Advisors in Sarasota tells us he was in the World Trade Center in Tower 2 for a conference that day. He says the conference happened to be on the ground floor in the tower when a plane went crashing into the North Tower. At that very second, he said he had no idea what was happening, but knew he had to get out.
I went out. There was only one exit I could take, an emergency door on Liberty Street. And of course, as soon as you were outside, you saw the North Tower smoking, and you saw people hanging out and trying to stay alive. You saw jumpers. I remember the jumpers clearly. It was an awful sight. And I worked my way across West Street and moved about one block, turned around and looked at the North Tower on fire, trying to figure out what it was, because we didn't know. And while I was there, I saw the plane hit the South Tower.
Trade towers.
Kotok says after the attack for 6 weeks, he could not sleep. And up to this very day, he still gets alarmed by loud noises, which he believes is a result of the attack. I also spoke to Joseph McMahon, who now lives in Sarasota. He was one of the first responders that jumped into action that day. Although he preferred not to go on camera, he tells us he responded after Tower 2 was hit. He says for 8 weeks, he worked to recover bodies, which ultimately led him to being diagnosed with PTSD. Now, both men and Kotok says the events of September 11, 17 years ago, will remain with them until the day that they die. Reporting live in Sarasota, Marla Spence for ABC 7, your Suncoast News.